अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। So we just saw what's the context of this verse which we're going to discuss today. And it's from chapter 9 called Most Confidential Knowledge. Krishna calls this confidential knowledge as Raj Vidya Raj Guhyam. That means it's the most secretive knowledge. We looked at the example of how we are not very comfortable discussing our most secretive elements of life, and something as ordinary as OTP or password also we are not very comfortable sharing with everyone, and why should we in first place? In the previous verses before the 18th one, there was a progression of how Krishna delineates himself as that I am the sacrifice, I am all the Vedas, the Rig Veda, the Yajur Veda. But in this verse, he gets even more personal. In India, when the marriage is arranged by the families, they exchange the biodata of the prospective groom and bride. And it is believed that whichever family sends the biodata first, that family is more excited for this match to happen. In this verse, Krishna is telling about himself in this chapter, that I am Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, I am the sacrifice. And now in this verse, he says, I am the goal, the sustainer, I'm even your best friend. So Krishna is so eager to tell about himself. What does that tell us about Krishna? That he's so anxious for us to turn to him. Just as we discussed the example in India as the family, whichever family sends the biodata first, it's assumed that that family is more excited for this match to happen. So Krishna is giving his biodata. Look, this is who I am. This is, how I act, and this is how I function. Oh, everything. He's not keeping anything secretive. On one hand, there's this book right in front of us. So there's actually nothing secretive about it. But still, he calls it secretive because it also depends who's the receiver of this knowledge. And now let's look at the 12 things that Krishna says he is in this verse. He says, I am the goal, sustainer, master, witness, abode, refuge, most dear friend, creation, annihilation, basis of everything, resting place, eternal seed. Wow, that's a lot. First thing that he says is, I am Gati. That means I am the destination or the goal. Years ago in 1960s, Srila Prabhupada was thinking that Srimad Bhagavatam is such a vast text. There are 18,000 verses. And if somebody misses on the opportunity of reading all 12 cantos of Bhagavatam, all 18,000 verses, then how that person is to understand the crux of it? So he thought, let me give a crux of all of that, especially from the 10th canto, into one book. And that's called Krishna book. How many of you have that book? Krishna book? Yeah? Krishna book. But unfortunately, at that time, he did not have enough means to publish that book. So he told one of his disciples, Shyam Sundar Prabhu, His Grace Shyam Sundar Prabhu, to reach out to George Harrison. George Harrison was a very popular musician. And he was so popular to the degree that on his birthday, George Harrison used to receive a truck loaded with letters and greetings just to greet him on his birthday. This is how George Harrison was so popular. And Shyam Sundar Prabhu thought that if I reach out to such a popular celebrity, he must be receiving these requests for donations all the time. So he had this inhibition but still his spiritual master had instructed him to do so, so he went ahead with it. And then he met George Harrison at his home. After a good talk, Shyam Sundar Prabhu thought, okay, now probably is the right time and I should say what Srila Prabhupada has told me, that we need donations to print this book. And when he said that, George Harrison was considering saying no. And just as he thought he would say no, all the lights in the house went off. And George Harrison thought, well, that's Krishna's sign, I shouldn't say no. And within a moment, the lights came back, and George Harrison said yes. Why am I telling you about this in this context? Next thing what Srila Prabhupada said was, now go to George Harrison and tell him if he can write a foreword to this book. Now the devotees were even more anxious that we have already requested him for donations, and we were awkward at doing that. Now to ask him to write the foreword to this book, and also he's not staying very close with us. How much does he know about this Krishna conscious philosophy? So they were not very comfortable. Still they went ahead with it because their spiritual master had instructed them to do so. And now I'm going to read out the first line of this foreword which George Harrison happily wrote for this book. George Harrison said, everybody is looking for Krishna. Some don't realize that they are, but they are. So this is why I talked about the foreword of this book, because it takes us back to assessing what our goal of life is. I want you to think about those times in your life when you wanted to attain a certain goal, and by Lord's arrangement, by your endeavor, all of that happened. But did it give you that eternal fulfillment, contentment, even after you attained that goal? Did it happen? No. Then we have another goal. Yeah? And why is our tendency to chase goal after goal after goal? Because Srila Prabhupada says we are trapped in the material nature. And because of that, we think that any material advancement is the perfection of life. This is called puna punas charvita charvananam. Chewing the chewed. You think now I'm going to derive pleasure, but then again, it's the same thing. So we need to assess the goal. As George Harrison said, everyone's looking for Krishna. Some realize that they are and some don't. We can also look at the example of Dhruv Maharaj. How many of you have heard of Dhruv Maharaj? Yeah? And what's so special about him? When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to visit Gadadhar Pandit, he used to listen to the pastimes from Srimad Bhagavatam from him. And he would be very keen to listen to two pastimes in particular. They were of Prahlad Maharaj and Dhruv Maharaj. Can you guess why? Anything similar in both of them? Prahlad Maharaj and Dhruv Maharaj? Yes. Both were children. Both were children, and both have set the example for us to follow, to do bhakti right from the beginning. What kind of flowers do we offer to Krishna? We offer the fresh flowers. Then why are we waiting? That, okay, one day when all of these goals that I'm thinking actually are the goals of my life, and they are attained, then I'm going to begin with bhakti. Anyway, so we come back to the example of Dhruv Maharaj, and then he was chastised heavily by his stepmother for one simple thing that he did, and that was to just simply sit on the lap of his father. And then his mother, he was very angry about this, and his mother consoled him and suggested that he go to the forest and do austerity and think about Lord Narayan. And this 5-year-old boy, he's so determined. He goes to the forest, does the austerity for such a long time, and finally gets the darshan of the Lord. Upon taking the darshan of the Lord, let's also think about why Dhruv Maharaj went to the forest. He had a goal in mind now, and that goal was, my stepmother has chastised me so badly for sitting on the lap of my father. Now I'm going to have a kingdom greater than my great-grandfather. This was the goal with which he set out to do these austerities in the forest. But he had a change of goal. And there were two elements that led to this change of the goal. One was he was chanting the holy names of the Lord, which we also can do all the time. We can say, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And he had the guidance of his spiritual master, Narad Muni. That changed the goal. And when did he realize this? The holy name, of course, started to work immediately. So he takes the darshan of the Lord. And then what does he say? What does Dhruv Maharaj say? That, my dear Lord, I was looking for the broken pieces of glass. And now when I see you, I realize that you are the real jewel. You are the real diamond. So this is how, dear devotees, we are always negotiating this dilemma. On one hand, we can chase after the material sense gratification, which is like the sharp pieces of glass, which can temporarily feel like they are our goals. But remember, in the longer run, they can make you bleed and suffer. On the other hand, you have the devotional service, and that's the real diamond. And that diamond is the love for Krishna. Second thing that Krishna says he is in this verse is that he is the maintainer. We know there are so many species of life that exist. And only one species of life, that is apparently the civilized species of life, that is negotiating with the difficulty of economic problem. There's no other species of life that has the economic problem. Yeah? The ants, the elephants, the lions, they're not in the drudgery of 9 to 5. Who's looking after them? Probably we should think about that. Who's maintaining their children? So that is how Krishna is maintaining everyone. And now let's kind of flip it. Think about, what if we strive to satisfy this maintainer? What will happen? In Mahabharata, there's one pastime wherein when Draupadi and her husbands are in the exile and they have a visitor, but just before they had this visitor, they had finished honoring prasadam, they just finished having their dinner, lunch, and now they had the visitor. And the visitor is Durvasha Muni, who is known to get enraged pretty quickly. Yeah, but is also a very powerful and pious sage. And now Draupadi just has one grain of rice left. And she's Draupadi. She knows how to take refuge. She knows how to call out to Krishna. And right there, when she's a pure devotee, Krishna is standing right in front of her at the window. And then she offers that grain to Krishna. And as soon as Krishna accepts it, Durvasa Muni, even without taking darshan of the prasadam, he is satisfied. All his disciples who came along with him, they are satisfied. Srila Prabhupada says, if you make Krishna smile once, the whole universe is satisfied. So we can see how Krishna did that actually for Draupadi. Third thing that Krishna says, well, actually I'm going to combine third and fourth together. He says, I am the master and witness, that I am Prabhu and Sakshi. I am the master and witness. How is he the witness? Ishvara sarva bhutanam hrideshe arjuna trishtati. This is what he says in Bhagavad Gita 18.61. that he has accompanied us in the form of Paramatma. He has not left any of the entity. I've got a 3-year-old son, can I leave him alone for even 1 hour in my apartment? I can't do that. How can Krishna leave us alone? He has accompanied us in the form of Paramatma in our hearts. Just that we don't know how to talk to him. Just that we don't feel his company because we are seeking company elsewhere and of everyone else. So this is how, and as Paramatma, he is witnessing everything that we are doing. Sometimes we may think that, okay, nobody is watching me. Krishna is always watching you. Also in the form of deity, he is witnessing. How many of you have heard the example of Sakshi Gopal, the pastime of Sakshi Gopal? Yeah? What does Krishna do there? Yeah, yeah. So there was this, in short, there was this pact between an older Brahmana and a younger Brahmana, both of whom were devotees of the Lord. And younger Brahmana had rendered service to the older Brahmana, and older Brahmana was so happy about his selfless service that he says that I'm going to give the hand of my daughter in marriage to you. And the younger Brahmana says, well, who is going to believe that? And they were at that point of time in front of the Gopal deity. And then the younger Brahmana says, I think we should take Krishna as the witness. And in the end, when nobody was believing the younger Brahmana, for some situation, older Brahmana had to hold back from saying the truth. Not because he had any ill intention at heart. Vaishnava is par dukha dukhi. He was told by his family, the older Brahmana was told by his family that if you agree to this match, if you actually give your daughter to this poor Brahmana, then the wife says, I'm going to poison myself, so don't do that. So how could have older Brahmana caused harm to someone else's life? So this is why he keeps quiet. And the younger Brahmana finds himself in the trouble of how to make everyone believe that this is what actually happened. And this deity of Krishna actually came all the way to the village where these two Brahmanas were and bore witness to this exchange, this dealing. Srila Prabhupada says that some say, okay, the moral of this pastime is that we should always speak the truth. That's there. We have to be honest. And there are so many learnings from the character of both the Brahmanas. But mainly, Srila Prabhupada says, it's how Krishna becomes so willing to intervene when it's about the dealings of his devotees. And this is how Krishna is the witness all the time. And what kind of master is he? We've heard that he is the controller of everything. But is he controlling? What do I mean by controlling here? When we are given control of something, we tend to get controlling about it. But Krishna is not like that. As a creator, when we create something, immediately, if I paint something, I immediately put my name under it and say that this painting is by Siddheshwari Devidasi. But Krishna gave his creation for us to enjoy. Also accompanied us. So even though he's the controller, but he doesn't take away our independence. So he gives two things as a master. As a master, he gives us the independence. And we can see that in Bhagavad Gita. After giving all the instructions, what does Krishna say to Arjun? Shri Radha Gokulananda Bhagavan ki. After giving all the instructions to Arjun, he says, Yat te chasi tatha kuru. He gives Arjun the independence. I've told you everything. Now you do as you like. Imagine, he's the controller and yet he's giving Arjun that independence. But with the independence as a master, he also gives us the instruction. Right after this verse, this was 1863, and in 1866, just 3 verses after that, because he is so concerned, he also gives the instruction saying, Sarva dharman paritajya mamekam sharanam vraja. That give up all your doubts, your fears, all religions that you think religion is, and hold on to my feet. So this is how he is as a master. Then he says in this verse that he is also nivasaha. That means abode. Let's consider an example. If in our house someone comes, a stranger comes, starts to live in your house, doesn't pay the bills, yeah, and he's not answering you, he's not even talking to you, how would you feel? You'll feel encroached. You'll feel so angry about that. Who's this person? Yeah? This universe, Krishna, as I said, as a creator, he gave us this creation. But we never turn to him to even say thank you. But we can take inspiration from Srila Prabhupada. How? He built not just one abode, but so many abodes called ISKCON, so that everyone can live in them and then start to turn to Krishna. This is very simple to understand. Suppose there's a father who has 3 children, and he brings candies for them. The first one takes the candies from the father. The second one takes the candies from the father and says thank you. The third one, before taking the candies, says, Father, why don't you have it first? And I can have it. Who do you think is the best? Third one. The second one at least has the gratitude, so that's a nice place to be. And the third one is offering it to the Father first. And this is gratitude in action. So this is how we can offer everything to Krishna. Even if you buy a pen, offer it to Krishna. Even if it's your garments, offer it to Krishna. Your abode, you can think about it as not your abode, but Krishna's abode, and live in it with a consciousness of how can I please the master of this abode. We can begin with that. Then he says that I'm the refuge, Sharanam. Shastras are replete with the examples of heroes who know how to take refuge. We just looked at the example of Dhruv Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj. We know how many. We had Narsingh Chaturdashi yesterday. And we saw how many times Prahlad Maharaj was put through the tortures. And he knew what was so heroic about Prahlad Maharaj. What is so heroic about Draupadi? That these heroes know how to duck when there is a war. His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj gives a very poignant example in this regard. He says that during world wars, the places that were most crowded were the ones that were underground, such as underground tube stations, of course the bunkers, yeah? And why is that? Because that's what is heroic to do. If there is a missile coming, you wouldn't be right out on the street. You would take refuge. You would take shelter. You would call out to Krishna. So this is what it means to take refuge, knowing that we are so limited. What is it that we can do on our own? The fact that I'm sitting here, able to talk to you, read from this, all of this is supplied by Krishna. The moment Krishna wills it, it's gone. So what is it that we can actually do on our own? It's all given by Krishna. So to survive, we duck. We know how to take refuge and take shelter. And then he says, I am the Suhurt, the most dear friend and well-wisher. It is said that there are 3 kinds of friends. One is a Bandha, another is a Mitra, and another is Suhurt. The first one is kind of an official friendship, like, You go to a grocery store, and every time you exchange a hi with the grocer, and that's how you develop a relationship. But it's only limited to that. Every time you go to the grocery store, it doesn't go beyond that. The second type of friendship is mitra. Mitra is the kind of relationships that you spend more time with in the material world. And still, the third one is suhurt. That means the real friend. The friend of all friends. And that is Krishna. Now let's look at the characteristics of suhurt. How to know that somebody is a suhurt. First, he knows you better than you know yourself. How many times it has happened in our lives that we thought I know myself. And then 5 years after that, you realize in hindsight how stupid I was. And that goes on. Are we really mature at any stage of life? No. But there is one person, supreme person, our suhurt, our best friend. He knows you better than you know yourself. So that is the first thing. Second, he knows what you need better than you do. Think of yourselves as pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. So these pieces, they might feel as, hypothetically, just for a moment, think of yourself as a jigsaw puzzle, and you might not be very comfortable being put against another jigsaw puzzle piece. And you're complaining about it. I don't think this is the right place where I should be. Or I don't think this is where I should be, as per my understanding. But does the jigsaw puzzle piece have more understanding or its maker? Its maker. He knows the full picture. So he knows what to give to you. And the third thing is, he knows how to give it to you and in such a way that you can receive it. So he also knows the means to send it to you, and he also knows that, this is the perfect timing for this person to receive it. And he does so by two things. One is indirectly, through his material energy. You have certain desires, and you might think that, you have caused it to manifest in a certain way, and Krishna then supplies it because he feels fit at this moment that, you're the right recipient and in this time. And another is directly. And how does he do it directly? By sending his direct representative in the form of a spiritual master. His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj once said, there is a way to know who's your friend. And that is, if that friend tells you that your friend is Krishna. Yeah? And once Srila Prabhupada, he was sitting with the devotees and he pointed out to Krishna saying that he is your best friend. The devotees said, no, Srila Prabhupada, you are our best friend. Srila Prabhupada said, I can disappoint you, but Krishna will never do that. But again, let's go back to His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj's statement. He said, that person is your best friend who tells you that Krishna is your best friend. Now that we know the characteristics of the Suhurt, now that we know that this is how Krishna knows who you are better than you do, Krishna knows what to give you, and Krishna knows how to give it to you and in a way that you can receive it. Now let's see how can we deepen our friendship with Krishna, the Suhurt that we have just spoken about. Srila Rupa Goswami recommends, Dadati pratigrhati guhyam akhyati prachati bhunke bhojyanti chaiva sadvidham priti lakshanam. So he gives these 6 exchanges. The first one is giving, offering. And Krishna gives the example of trees. He calls out his friends. He says, look at these trees, and we must learn something from them. And that is how to give. He says, one should give with praner arther dhiya vacha. Praner is your life. So now when we are talking about how to deepen our friendship with Krishna, we should think about how we can make, even if it is broken, how we can turn this life into an offering, even though a broken offering. Some rounds chanted attentively, some rounds not so attentively, some days very enthusiastic. But still, if we have the intention, then at least that offering can go to Krishna. And we can pray that accept this offering of life, my dear Krishna. Second was wealth. How do you earn wealth? You give your life to earn wealth. You give all your energy, your intention, your time, your due attention to earning that. And if not all of it, because you have to maintain the family that's given to you by Krishna, you also can make donations. Then, dhiya, intelligence. If not that, not everyone would be comfortable doing that. Then you can give your intelligence to Krishna. You can think of ways, how can I serve Krishna and his devotees? And then vacha. Vacha means words. How can I serve Krishna with my words? You can chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And you can help others chant. And you can help others turn to Krishna. What's the instruction of Mahaprabhu? Jare dekha tare kaha Krishna upadesh. And what else does he say in one of the most endearing composition? He says, Prabhura gyay bhai mangiye bhiksha, bolo Krishna, bhajo Krishna, koro Krishna shiksha. And all three require just words. Bolo Krishna, bhajo Krishna, worship Krishna, koro Krishna shiksha. That what you know, but you have received these gifts of Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, distribute them. So we have discussed how to give. Second is accepting gifts. And what gifts do we have from this friend called Krishna? We have his advice, his instructions. And we should be willing to receive those gifts. The whole point is, we give the gifts, but we also receive it. And how can we enter the mood of the recipient? By being willing to hear what Krishna has to say to us. And another gift is mercy. Mercy that Krishna gives us. So he gives us the instructions and the mercy. And why is it so important to hear about Krishna? Let's look at the example of Rukmini. How did she develop love for Krishna? By hearing about Krishna all the time in her palace. She had not seen Krishna, but she had only heard about Krishna. And by hearing about Krishna, what does she say to Krishna in a letter? That I want to give my life to you. Praner arther dhiya vacha. We come back to that. So this is how important it is to hear about Krishna, to develop love for Krishna. Third element here is guhyam akhyati prachati. And that means that we reveal our heart and mind to this friend. So we can talk to the deities. Yes, for a moment we may be considered mad, but it's okay. We are always considered mad by someone. That's fine. But we can talk to the deities in our mind, in our heart. We can also write letters. Because we have letters. One devotee one time said that the purports that you read by Srila Prabhupada, you can actually, on top of those purports, write that this purport is a letter from Srila Prabhupada to you. And you can also write letter to Krishna and Guru and Gauranga back. And one of the things that my mentor taught me was this, to write letter to Krishna. Put that at the altar. Krishna is reading your letter. Srila Prabhupada is reading your letter. Just as Prabhupada says that we get his association in his books. And Prabhupada was a man of letters. If he was in the car, he was traveling by the aircraft, why did he still not use a telephone? This is the value of letters. Rukmini was also writing letters. And the fourth element then is bhunkta. That means offering. As I said, we offer bhoga. We just don't eat. We have to be the third kid. We discussed about 3 children. The third child was the best because he was saying, Daddy, you eat first, then I eat. And in order for us to become that best child, we offer everything that we get to Krishna. We offer bhoga and then honor prasadam. We only accept what Krishna has left as the remnant for us to accept. And then he says, bhojayate. And that means honoring prasadam with devotees. Not alone. Yeah, sometimes we can be alone. That's okay. That's circumstantial. But we should try to honor prasadam with the devotees. Do we have something like that? An instruction like that? Yeah? Where is that? In the Mangala Arati prayers? Yeah, so the Guru becomes pleased. Thank you. The Guru becomes pleased when you honor prasadam with devotees, it says. With devotees. Finally, so we looked at how to deepen our friendship with Krishna. And let's conclude this with what Srila Prabhupada said in this regard. If we make our friendship with Krishna, Srila Prabhupada says, it will never break. If we make our master Krishna, we will never be cheated. If we love Krishna as our son, he will never die. If we love Krishna as our lover, he will be the best of all, and there will be no separation. Because Krishna is the Supreme Lord, he is unlimited and has an unlimited number of devotees. Srila Prabhupada ki